Hello, good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, wherever you might be joining from. And yeah, welcome back to this edition of our class. So we will be starting in a moment. So please, Mr. Gazal, can you confirm this?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm pretty much ready for today's section. Thank you. So may I proceed, please?
Sorry, Mr. Brahman, Mr. Gazal, we can't hear you. I can't hear you at all.
Oh. Is it better now? Sorry, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Oh.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can hear you, Mr. Gazal. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it very audible or it's faint?
It's audible. I think just they might need to increase their volume, but I can hear you audibly.
Okay, thank you very much for
hear
the
you audibly.
information. Okay. I'm not saying anything at the moment, Fatima, in case you feel that's it. I'm not saying anything at the moment.
Mr. Brahman Gaza, please, I can't still hear you, but are you ready to start the class so that I can make you the host? Kindly chat
Yeah.
me. Thank you. So, Mr. Abdraman, I've made you the also you can start the class. Thank you.
You're much welcome. Hope everyone can hear me. Is anyone having issues hearing me? If that's fine, I believe we can start today's class. So, good day, everyone, from all across the globe, wherever you are. Good day. Just the weekend is going well. And if for some reason, I don't think there should be a place still at Friday. But if so, just the evening is going well then. Good day, and we'll be continuing today's class. Thanks to all those that were able to do the assignment and submit, and unfortunately some encountered some issues which had to do with probably their version, Excel, and other reasons as well. Unfortunately, it's late, and I think we should just try to plan much better next time and for subsequent classes. I'm not undermining whichever reason could be in someone's situation. Someone could have been ill, and then I wouldn't say you shouldn't prioritize your health. But regardless, let's just do some things as soon as possible and not give it so many just give it some time so that it doesn't kind of clashes with other things. So thanks for the assignment. I actually enjoyed going through some of them. You're going to get the your answers. You're going to receive the your submitted assignment. You're going to receive it back. Just minor comments here and there, which I feel we can all incorporate. And some of them are no harm at all to your mark or anything. Just my distant point of view to the presentation that you gave. So to the table, whether the format or just the way you did it. So there were very dynamic ways in which the assignment was done. To get the price tag, some of you just literally created a column between the files. So let me start sharing my screen now. Hope we can all see my screen. Okay, that's good. So this was literally the assignment file you received, and alongside the PDF file which had the construct. So for the example we did in class, the price units were literally beside the quantity, and then one just had to do the multiplication with the asterisk sign, which represent multiplication. But then in order to test our VLOOKUP, I just had to make a table out of it, and then so that we can then search for the value ourselves and do the multiplication. And the funny thing was that there were a lot of diverse assignments. No way I didn't specify a means of you doing the assignments, which I just wanted also try from the diverse functions that we've learned. And I was happy to see different ways in doing it. So the least appreciated means was a situation whereby people had to just manually enter it themselves. So they literally created a new column that had unit price. So they created a column just by starting a column this way. So they made it the unit price and didn't even use any function and had to enter the prices manually. So for carrot, entering 0.7. And I was wondering that must have consumed a lot of time. But then if you're dealing with data that is 2000 and the likes, that's going to take a long way. Your answers, that didn't affect your mark because I felt the answers are right. For manual entry, it affected because I felt that was not the best way to do it. Let me put it that way. Your answers themselves are right, but then the approach to it So entering each of them manually was going to take like forever. And what others did is they literally sorted the products alphabetically. So the first one became the arrow root. And then they were able to like, enter the result manually, still drag it down and then enter each section, which I felt was, pretty much their way of doing it. But the answers were also correct, but they're not the best way. And some used the if. So like the if function, and that was the most surprising one for me, because I never thought of like, it's not, the answers were correct and it was perfect, but it was like, I never thought of that as an option to solve this. Like giving it and was, as I was expecting different formulas, I wasn't expecting that to be an option on the list. And it was interesting to see how the person was able to use the if, that once this is carrot, use this price. If not, check for this, use this price. And it was interesting. Some used the X lookup I was looking for. Some used VLOOKUP, which worked fine as well. In this case, some even used the pivot table, which you've not done yet. But why I gave the assignment, which the pivot table didn't affect the mark as well, because like I said, I didn't specify the means of doing it. So I was welcome to people's idea, just that the manual one was too basic, I'll say. So like, that I just deducted some marks for that. But I believe while we have done it, we've all seen one way and the other in which we can carry out the task, that we don't have to always carry out the task the same way. We can get the same results by carrying it, using different formulas and then interpreting it whichever way it goes. So for each of these methods, it was because our logical understanding was more or less like, to get this, I can do it like this, and you found that easier for you to go with, and that was why I used the method. Because of timing, I was thinking of giving the solution, but I don't think that does much help. So we are just going to go through the assignment fast as possible, as fast as possible, while we can meet up. So as we all knew, we have the results, like we have this data, which told us to find what? To find the price of each of these items. So we have the quantity, but we don't have their price per unit. And that means that we need to find the price of carrot, which in this case is 1.7, and then multiply it. The voice is breaking. Is there any other person experiencing a breaking voice? Sorry, I didn't hear that, please.
It's not breaking from my end.
So perhaps Fatima, check maybe your data and stuff like that, like the location and things like that affects data. Thank you. Yeah, so I appreciate the feedback. I just like for everybody to follow as best as possible. So this is not the only way to do it. Like I said, the if statement and the likes were more than welcome. So it's just for you to write the ifs, which is this, the one with multiple condition. In our case, we're not looking for a situation whereby, yes, what has entered is not there. So the if was a logical test. If this is what is equal to this value, which you can lock. So I can lock it using the F4. If it's equal to that, what should it return? The price, if true, it should return this price. And then the next logic statement is, if this, it should test if it is equal to this. And like if you recall from our if statement, provided one of them is true, it's going to return the value for that true. So you could just keep entering that, and then that will be like a set of conditions. So each of them are fine, but for me, I'll just go with our X lookup. So not the only way, don't forget that, not the only way, but just every cap on our class. So for the X lookup function, who says what value should it look for? It should look for the value carrot, which instead of this, I probably prefer to use the the cell reference itself, which is under F, then it is row 15. So look for F15, which as you can see, it has highlighted it, carrot. Search for it where? Search for it from carrot, that is the product value. search for it within this product value. And like I said before, you can always, this is a region I want to put in absolute reference so that it doesn't change. And that's why you can see the dollar sign in front. Then where should you look for the results? Look for the result here, all the way down. So you can press your Control Shift. Yeah, so this is the return value I want because I want you to search for a product, carrot, from this list of product as well, and return the corresponding words, the corresponding price. So back to it. This one as well, I want to lock it. So F4 again, and I close the bracket. And once I do this, it returns the corresponding price. So as we can see for whole wheat, you can see the price of whole wheat as well to be 3.49. But then this is not the desired value I want. I want it multiplied by the quantity, which I can simply just go to the end of it, or I can put it in front. It doesn't affect the formula. So whatever value X lookup returns, multiply the asterisk sign by what? By this. So it's also writing it in product. We can just write the cell reference name, which in this case will be G15. But then I can't use absolute referencing here because I want for the next one to switch to what? To G16, G distinct. So what we can do is we can only put it, maybe put the dollar sign in front of the G. So we are using it for just the column. That is, maintain the column G, but change the row. That you can do. And then without this thing, we can see that it has affected all as well, because it's considering this whole data to be a table. So Excel is doing a flash fill that it is understanding what we have done ahead and replicating it to the below. So all these are solved the question one. All these are solved question one and or the question A, and one is done. So if we'll be adding up all the values between these, it should be having a total sum of 33,015 USD 71 cents. So you can always make all these rules as well. What's it called? This thing, a currency, because we are dealing with amount here. So, and since the prices were in dollars, so we can just simply use the accounting or just use the 1 year. So instead of searching for it all the way, which we can do here, so you just go to accounting. And in this case, it's already done. If not, we would have needed to do it ourselves again. So that was for the first question. For the second question, which I felt some of us did not understand, was that yes, it was find the total product. So the second question read that you should calculate the total quantity sold per product per region. So if we be saying selling the total quantity per product per region, that's the total quantity sold products per region. So this means that find for each product which we have on this list, or it could be this list as well. For each of these products we have on this list, find the quantity, which here we have quantity and per region, which means based on the region as well. So from the region, we can use filter to know how many regions we have by initiating the filter region, which is just going to this place, sort and filter, and then we can press this down arrow, and then we see how many options we have. So we can either select the region or select east or west. So in this case, we don't need it, but just to show you, same for the city, we can see we have 4 cities as well. And for the product, as we can see, there are 9 of them, which is the same thing as here. So in that case, it means we need to first extract what products do we have. and then find the quantity that is sold based on each region. So we can simply copy this table and then paste it here, which some of you did. And if not, you can just re-extract it. Okay, sorry to hear that. So to check the product, we can always get the product. So product, what's the product? I said you can simply copy, which, yeah, a reasonable amount of you did. You can copy it and then transfer it here, or you can extract it. In a situation whereby it's not available to you, then what do you do? So let me clear the content. In a situation whereby it's not available to you, what do? You can always use the unique function. Unique. What's the first row? This is the product. We don't want to include the header there. So we want to include the value under the header. From the first one to the last one under the header, we close it. And what unique does it brings out every single value in that region, so which we have here. So we have each of them. It corresponds to this amount or this result. So we have each of them, product, we can capitalize it, and then we have each of them. So from carrot, it's put everything out, removing the duplicates. And we can even go further to sort the function. So after bringing out their unique value, I want you to sort them alphabetically, which is not compulsory, of course, but then you just put everything from the unique function within the sort function, and once you press it, it sorts them out properly again. So the function to get the total quantity is equal to using the sum if function. That is, I want to tell it that sum the quantity if it is arrow should. So for us to do that, we must tell Excel to first look at this list. Once you see arrow root, find the quantity that is beside it and sum it up. Go down again to the next place you find it and sum it up, and that's what the sum if does. But in this case, we have more than one condition, so we use the ifs, the sum ifs. And what's the summing range I want it to do? Is quantity. That is, it is quantity I want to add up. The result I want to have is in respect to quantity. So from the first cell as well with a result, which is this, from the 15th one, 14, 15. So from the 15th cell all the way down to the last one, that's the sum range. The moment we enter a comma, it goes to the what we call the criteria range, which is the criteria range I want you to find is, I want you to find products. And what is now the criteria? That is, I want you to find products, which could be apple, it could be, it could be root, it could be carrot, it could be arrow root. Then the criteria is what should I go and find in that distance, in that range, which we can, of course, always log the range because that's the best thing so that it doesn't change. So F4, again, making the product range absolute. So for this one as well, oh no, yep. So at the end of it, yeah, so for what should be the criteria should be this. That is whatever is here, that's what we want to log, and you should add it up. And then we simply close it and we press the equal to sign. So it's saying there's an error in our formula. So let's replace the sales period. That is, remove it with the cell reference, which is the quantity is what we want to add up, which is in G. So G15, that's the range. We enter the column to the last one, which is G258. G258. And after entering it, now we can always confirm by scrolling up and down. So we can scroll up and down to see if our range is truly reflecting. So we have this, which is showing this is the G range. This is the start. Oh, this has changed slightly, which is wrong. So from F15, yeah, from the start F15 all the way down. So what's the last row? As we can see, they're ending at the last row, which is 258. So, and that's why we have the 258. We should also make this absolute referencing F4, and the N20 remains our criteria of what it should look for. So look for arrow roots, and then we enter equal to, and now we can see a value that represents the addition of all our all our quantities. So we can drag this down, and then it's going to give this. But here we entered one criteria. We need it based on what? Based on region. So what we need to do is go back to our formula and enter more criteria. So that's for the first criteria. The second criteria will be for what? The region. What region should you consider? Which is from the first one to the last one. Same thing is giving us the name. We can always use the absolute referencing. So range is under what? Is under C, C15 to C258, because we know the end of it, and you can see it has highlighted it again. Use absolute referencing. Oh. C258. I'm trying to identify this cell there. So absolute referencing for the C. So now C is also fully logged from the beginning to the end. And then what's the criteria for the region, which we have not spooled out? That's an error which we have not spooled out. But for the region, which should be the criteria, let's select this cell, which should be the reference point to the criteria. So it's empty at the moment, and as such, we are going to get 0 because there's nothing here. So to get the value for the region, we can simply, because it is 2, we can simply write east here, east. And you see the moment we wrote a value there, it changed our west. But then we can apply the same formula we used here to get it out, that is unique. And then in this case, to make it not a row format like we did the last one, we can use the unique row format. But then this is a way to calculate it. So we can drag this to this side. But if we drag it to this side, we need to edit the formula. That is, we don't want to enter everything again, but we need to edit it. Edit it why? Once we click on it, what's the rate we still want to sum? We still want to sum the quantity, so that's fine. What's the first criteria we want to give it? Check for the product name, which is still the same. This is where the distance is. This is O20, right? Which is still what? O20, which is fine. But this is O20 rather, which is wrong. We want it to be where? The arrow, the root arrow. So as I said before, you can drag the distance itself there, or you can just simply enter it there. So it's now back at N20. That is, the criteria you should look for the product is N20. This range, the region, is logged, that's still desired by us. But then for the distance, for the district, which has changed correctly in this case to west, which is correct, and then we press enter, and so we have the value for west. We need to lock this, that is the first one. Yep, P, let P be, distance P be fixed, and let N be fixed. Why is it not giving error? So you should search banana from this list. First comparison is N21. Yes. This is the second criteria. Oh, this is
P is fixed. Yeah.
Absolute, yep. An absolute log 2. So that should be P19. And that's why. So we need to come back here and fix the region completely. So we need to fix the region completely. That was the error. Yeah. P is fixed. The 19 must be fixed as well, because we don't want it to change from the region. The region is fixed, so it should apply for others as well. And now we should have the correct result. So did we do that here? So we just need to use absolute reference here as well. Then we drag it down. So the answers initially were wrong because it was searching for the wrong values. So this is right. We did a mistake by not locking the distance, the region values. So by locking the region values, as we can see subsequently, the region is logged irrespective of transferring down, and that should answer question B. For question C, which we can pretty much copy the table above, but then we'll empty a part of it. So question C is asking us to calculate the total quantity or the total sales per region. Yes, so we need to edit the header. What's the total sales per products per region? That's the question for quantity C. So we don't need to do the product again. The formula is still the same. Like I said, for this, you can always use the formula as well by saying unique function. We're calling our unique function. We want you to go and look at range from the first value all the way down. In this case, it's going to enter down. So what we need is, we undo it. We need to use the row to this thing, the row to row function. So equal to row. Perhaps let me do it outside. Yeah, so that we can see the error we got. Unique. From the first value under the range all the way down, and we are closing it. So we can see we are having the values in one single column in different rows. But in this case, we want the value in a single row, different column, and that's why we need to include the function called to row in front of it, which makes it in the same row. So to row, and then within our to row function, we can put the unique function there. So this is including a function within another function. So from the beginning again to the end, we close it and we close our to row function. And now we have it. Why is it saying split? It's not supposed to be this, because let me empty them. If I empty the cells and I clear the content, okay, the formula again, equal to row. So we have the to row function. We call on our unique function. We have the range is C. So we have C15, column to C258, which is the region. We close both and then we enter the value. So we can see the east and the west. But right now we need to change these values as well. So we can change the value by clearing the entire section so that we don't confuse it, and then we do the calculation. So still using our sum ifs. So the sum if statement, The sum range we want to add up now is the price range and not the quantity range. So the sum if product we want to add now is the price and not the quantity range. So we just need to enter the first value there, all the way down as our sum range, which in order to avoid errors, let's remove this reference and use the same reference. So that will be H15 to H258, which represents the same region. As I said, we can always confirm by scrolling up and down to be sure that we are indicating the right region. So for this region, I would like to keep it absolute so that we can easily drag it down for the others. What's the criteria as well? The criteria is still the same. What's the criteria range? We want to check for the product first. So for product as well, we have F15. So we have our F258, which we can use absolute referencing for all. It's not reflecting it. I have to go into the cell above and then use absolute referencing F4 for the range as well. So what do we want it to look for? Find this, which is N33 in this case, that is the product itself. Find this. We want the row to the column value to be fixed, and then the row to be changing. So we'll fix N and leave 33. So this will be the criteria for the product. Now for the region, it's same thing as before. So we enter C15 to C258 because that's the row range. So we do the same thing, absolute referencing, F4. What's the criteria for the range, for the region? The region is the top one above here. So in this case, we want to lock everything here, so we'll use F4 to lock the region because we don't want the region location is one cell. The cell variation is not affecting dragging it down, so we need to lock it completely. And by locking that, we can now close our sum if statement, and then we have the equal to sign or the enter push button. So this is the sum, and we can simply drag this as well down. And by dragging that down, we can always check for it. So this is the formula. What is it adding up? It is adding the first one, the total price, based on the criteria that was first look for O width, look for it in the product list, let the region be East, which is reflecting to this, and everything is is in the right order. So we can drag this as well to the side, but then we need to also change it, that is adjust the formula. To adjust it, we need to say, so in this case, the arrow root is still in the right place because we logged it correctly, but then we need to change this region reference from East to what? To the West, which is under P and not under O, but still the same what? The same row. So we just need to change the O to P. And then even before we entered, we can see the reference has changed. And then we have the correct value. And we can simply drag this down. So this was all that was required of us for the assignment. And the same method, we just change the criteria, that is from quantity to, from per region to per city. So the criteria remains the same, and that was pretty much our assignment. I'm trying to look at the time, but yeah, I'll go through that fast. So let's say this is the, and then we change the title. So instead of per city, per region rather, it became per city. And then instead of using region here, we'll have to change our reference location, which will be equal to row unique. And as we can see here, the city column is different from the region column. So we just have to come to D, which has the value. So we have from, as usual, D15 to D258. That's the range. We close both. And then D15. Okay, I believe it's because of the entry. So the entry we have there before, we need to clear it, clear the cell. And then we can enter our value again without experiencing error. So to row, that was the mistake by leaving a value there. Unique, we have D15 to D258, close both, and now we have the correct lesson. City, state, we can always expand that we have the full name. So we have Boston, Los Angeles, New York, and San Diego. So for the values as well, these are wrong because we only copied the table itself. So, oh, sorry about that. System, let's go. Okay, so we can always clear this as well, clear the content, and still use our sum if function. So with the sum if function, the range we still want to sum is the same, which is H15 to H258. We are locking the entire region. Let me go up here. So F4, we are looking everything. So after the region we are adding up, now the criteria, the first criteria still remains the same. We want product, which is F15 to F258. We'd like to lock that up as well so that it doesn't change. F4 again, and then, oh, that was a clearing mistake. So what should be the criteria? The criteria should be this. Same thing, we want to lock the row, or rather the column. So N is logged, and then it can change from 46 to 47. That is, the row changes. The second criteria will now be the city, which is under D. So we have D now, and that will be D15 to D. Am I correct? This is A, B, C, D. Yep. So D15 to D58, and this as well we can lock. And what's going to be the the criteria? So one for Boston, and that will be, we need to log this as well completely. And at the end, we close the bracket. So this is for sum of quantity first. So we are using sum of, we did a mistake by using sum of some total sales. So we can move this to this side, and then it changes the value. So our total sum is no longer H, is now G. You could have changed it here, but it was here before, and now dragged it here. So we can always scroll up. Oh, we did a mistake by taking it a bit down. So it's to correct it here, G15 to here, G28, G5258, which is correct, and then we press the enter button. So that's the sum of the quantities, and we can drag this down. So we can drag this across the other boards as well, but we need to edit as usual. If we click on this, we can see it's still referring to the fixed place as well as the value. But if we click on this, you can see the location is wrong. So, and the last criteria we entered was referring to the location. So as we can just easily change this one to P, and then it will be fine. As we can see here, it's now in the right. Yeah, it's now in the right region. Yeah, change the bit. Is it still clear enough, or trying to like manage the space? So that's this thing. This is for the region, which reflects it truly that yes, we are multiplying, adding the quantity based on the product as well as the city, and now it's Los Angeles. We can do just drag down, and that will be fine. For this, we can change it also from O. We are now in the Q column, so just enter Q, and then we have the correct results. So we can drag this down as well, and that will be the answer. And this, we just need to change the last value as well. That is the column now to R, because for our table, we are placing it in the R column. So we do that as well, and we drag it down. So I know we are in 1 hour section, but we started a bit late. So let's give it some time, and we can do the same for question E, which is the sales in this case. So we change our values, or our title rather, in this case, sales. Sales. And now for the city, from region to region as well. Oh, this was not, because the formula we used above was not locked. You can see when we copied the table, the region shifted. It is now D28 to D271, and that's not the correct region. So those are one of the good reasons for locking values. So we need to edit this back to, if we scroll up, we're going to see that it's missing some entries, and it's starting at D18 because we copied it and took it down there. So the best thing is we can always drag it up or just simply edit it to D15, then to D58. And we have it in the right order again. So this we can change without much stress. We know initially we're dealing with this thing. The sum range is the difference. The formula is the same, the sum range is the difference. So which refers to the first one. Like I said, this is the sum range. When you enter this thing, this is it. Once you enter that range, the sum range is what we are changing. Before we added quantities together, now we would like to add the sales, which is not G, but is under the H. Is under the H and not the G. So to affect this, we just need to come to this section, change from G to H, and then from G to H. And we can see it has shifted. So that's all. We don't need to change any other part of it because they are the same. And we just need to drag this down so that it can affect the other ones. And then same for here, we don't need to drag it, it's just to change the entry period. So from G to H, and from G to H, and we drag down as well. So for the next one, from G to H, changing it to H as well. We must change for the entire range, and then that will be all. So we drag down as well. For the last one, we do the same. So G to H, then G to H, and then we add it as well. We drag down as well. So this will be almost all for the assignment. The last thing that was requested was that, yes, you should do a color coding, which as we did last week, you could just come here. The sales target was what? Was 500. What some of you did was you highlighted the ones that were greater than 500, which is good, depending on the intended report. But then when we compare this our table, we have more values above 500 than fewer values and fewer values below 500. So it's better to say the ones that were defecting, that is, that did not meet the target, than to say the ones that met the target and surpassed it. So this is just my opinion. Like, it's not wrong, but then it depends on who you are showing the data to and what interpretation you want the person to easily make out of it. So if I say lesser than 500, use light red, and considering the color that I'm using, it makes it much easier for whoever is So using this, it makes it much easier to look at it that, yes, these are the guys defaulting that did not meet the target. And then you can see the products that are mostly not meeting the target, because in this case, banana is not meeting, maybe because of how cheap it is on the quantity. And then you can see similar stuff for potato chips across all branches. And then we can see the branches that are performing better than others. And we can even put this in region context. So this was all that was required of you for the assignment. And I believe this was much better to depict than just sharing you the answer file. And that was all that was required from you. If you have any questions, you may ask them now.
Mr. Abdurrahman, mine is not a question.
Okay.
It's a comment. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said we could leave the last part of the assignment, that's the E, that we've not touched on something similar. So I didn't do that part of the assignment. I don't know.
Okay. So when I shared my screen and I commented, I was intending to do another part in the class, which was to do a total sales per product per month. I think that was the intention. Yeah, that was what I was intending in the class. And so I was unable to do that. That is getting the month out of the other date. As we can see in this case, we have the 1st to be the month which depicts January, and then we have 19th to be the date and 20 to be the year. So that was the screen I shared in the class section. So when I sent the assignment at the end of the day, I had to edit it and then make it still the same exercise, but since we didn't get to do the month function in class, then I made it for the total sales. So if it was not needed in the assignment, I would have removed it. Yeah, sorry for the confusion, but yeah, that was what I meant by the statement. And not that, yeah, the question E was not applicable, because the question E itself, just as I did now, we did it in the last class. So it was pretty much welcome within the context of what was learned. Yeah, sorry if I in any way passed the message wrongly, but that was the intended message. Yep. Before you can ask a question now.
Please, I don't quite understand how you use that at product in when you were trying to solve task 1, the ifs using at product.
Okay.
That at, I don't really understand what the function of the at.
Question 1.
Yeah, the task 1, that is using when you used ifs and you put in bracket at product. Please, can you explain?
At product is not a function I kept, but rather it was a reference from Excel. And that's why I keep canceling it to write this. So a simple example is this. If I want to sum some things up and I'm saying sum, this is the sum function, general sum function. And then let's say I want to just sum this range up. At the moment, we can see that it is writing H15 to H26, right?
Yes.
Let's say I'm going to the top and then I want to sum the entire region. So you can see it changed the data, reference it's using. So this is an upgrade to Excel, which they did in their own context, that it should reference the value and then not this thing. That is referencing the text and not the cell reference. So that was why the art was coming. In this case, it's not showing, but if I probably use the if statement like you mentioned, or let me complete this function just as I wanted to do, and then you can see that it's still going to compute the values. So that wasn't from me, that was just an Excel inbuilt. So as we can see here, the values are still correct, it's calculated correctly, but that was just Excel doing its own reference. That's why I was trying to clear it so that we can see actual numbers. So this was a simple example of it. That is, if what's the logical test? That is, let me go to the top so that we can see the price tables more clearly. Okay, so let me do it somewhere here. Ifs, what's the logical test? If it is carrot, that is, if what is this is equal to whatever is in this cell, which I can just use absolute reference for, return this value, and then the next logic, if it's not that, or if it is equal to, oh, that won't be this thing. That is, if not that, if it was equal to this still, and then it's equal to what is entered here. It's not showing it right now, but generally I didn't enter any art statement. It was just Excel bringing its stuff out.
Okay, just by clicking the product cell.
Yeah, just by clicking the product, it just pops it up. So it wasn't a function I was trying to use it myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Are there another question in regards to the assignment? Okay. If you could please drop your hand if you don't have any other question. Yeah, so that would be all for the, yeah, do you have a question, Oyi?
Yes, yes, I do. Thank you so much for the correction to the assignment, but I want to confirm. Yes, I want to confirm something.
Okay.
So the latest version of the Microsoft Excel, I think it's 2021. Okay, so I have not been able to get it too, because it's as if one has to pay for it also. So I use the online, there's an online, this Microsoft OneDrive. So I was able to work with that. Okay. So, but then I'm not, my system is not open now. Based on the approach you use to this assignment, you use to row unique function and all. So that's a row. I'm not sure. I think it's only associated with the latest version. Am I correct? I don't want to go and be checking now so that I don't get distracted from the class. I don't want to be that when you are done, I'll not start back with that. I guess it's associated with 2021, the latest version, right?
Okay, I can't say the exact date it came out, but I believe it's associated with the latest version. So let's check the help page if you're going to see a function like a date in regards to this thing. So when it was here. So when it was provided, I don't know if there's going to be a date, but let's go down to see if you're going to say that. No, I don't think so. No information on that. So, but I'm very sure that it is a new function because I just came across it as well during preparation for this class section. Okay, availability. Yep, so this is the version. That is, if you're using Windows of this, if we probably go to the browser, we'll see more information. But yeah, I know it came with other functions itself, to row, to column, text split. I know there are new functions that were just developed, but I can't say the exact dates without further search. Yeah. And then there is no way I can advise on like how to get the latest version. But if at most you go through your file, that is with your data on, of course, and then you go to options. So, minute please. If you go to file, then you go to account, not options. So you go to account, you should see something like update your version, something like this. So for me, I'm using a version from my school. My school paid for it. So unfortunately, I didn't know there was even like, these limitations until you started raising it up and yourself and others raised them up. Like, I didn't know there were limitations such as this. Yep, just work on getting that at your end. Yeah, so Timothy, you can ask a question now.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for the explanation of your assignment.
You're welcome.
For me, it's not really a question. I'm just asking whether there is a second chance, probably maybe like for some of us that are able to do their assignment, whether we could be given probably another assignment, not this one because you have already done it. Probably to just cover up like for this one that we have we did not do. Like for me, I wasn't really well, so I wasn't able to get it done in time.
Okay. So one thing I'll ask is that I'll say we should go for a break now, between now and then everybody returns back at 26 past the hour, or let's just return back at 22 past the hour because like we still have some things to cover. And then for those that have questions can of course wait behind, but if you want to take a break, please let's return by 22 minutes past the hour. So whichever time frame you have, I believe it should be 17 minutes past the hour at a time. So let's return back. Let's just go 5 minutes today. So thank you very much. Yeah, so to answer your question, Timothy, the bootcamp itself, it's not just Excel. And for the Excel section, this week will be the last week. And then you continue with the other distant programs later. So for this section, unfortunately, no other assignment can be issued out. However, try to cover up on other sections, and I'm sure the organizers will keep everything in mind and then try to rectify it as best as possible to make sure that you are all distant. These assignments, as much as it helps in assessing you towards the course itself and then your certificates, I believe the more point of view that should be seen, like I said, I saw your message, and then I can say, you shouldn't factor your situation into play, but then it's not possible for us to welcome all circumstance because then there's a schedule and we need to keep up with. I hope you do understand from our point of view. But then there'll be other assignments that you can work on, and everything will be properly assessed. So just work on the other assignments much better. I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so Abdul Razak, I don't know.
Yes, sir. Please, can you please scroll to the part of the assignment? So I wanted to confirm with what I did just now. Let me see.
Okay. You can see the assignment. Which section should I scroll to?
E. I can see okay. E, the last one. Okay. You just wait and just quickly check.
Come again, please.
I'm fine. I just wanted to confirm what I did was correct.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
No worries. So what we can of course do is, which we missed out on, is to include the symbol because we are dealing with currency and we like to keep that in our report as well. So just to click on that. Yep. So Chante, you can ask a question now, please.
Yes, Mr. Abdul, thank you so much again. It's just a follow-up question with Timothy. I screwed up because I didn't know that it was 12 noon Nigerian time. But I sent it by email. So should I not expect anything? I just quickly sent the email to the general email box, my own assignment. Should I just not expect anything as well?
Yeah, so it's like, it's same thing. I just believe, that's it. But if the organizers have further comment on that, it's welcome. But
I'll send to your email box. I really hope you consider it because when I checked and when I wrote and I didn't have like a response from you on the Slack, I just sent it by email. So I pray and hope that you guys can consider it. I'm sorry though. Yeah, it was my mistake of not seeing that it's noon instead of midnight. You know, the time difference too is just crazy, but it's okay. It's not your fault.
Yeah, thanks for your understanding. Okay. Oyi, yes, you can ask a question.
Okay. One more thing, sir. I don't know. It may look like a very cheap question, but to me, I've not mastered it. The way you divide your this page, you know, the header, the where you have information on your name and everything, the description. So that place seems to be static, while the lower part where the content of the table is, that one is movable. So actually, I found very difficult to work with that. Are you able to do it? And can it be undone?
Yes, you
By
can.
individual students? Okay,
Yes,
please, can you help?
Okay, so I mentioned it in the first class, but yeah, I'll do it again. So why I kept it this way is just that you can see where you are. Maybe in a simple data like this, it's easier for you regardless of we are like at the end of this text. You can still say that, okay, this refers to dates, this refers to region, this refers to city, like categories and things like that. But then in some situation, it's not so easy for you to tell what you have on top. Let's say you have a data set that there are data in like about 20 columns, then how do you say this? But of course, to come back to your answer, so to undo this, you need to go to view. Yes, view. So we have home, we're under home before. What you need to do is, this is the cell that is logged. This is the last cell, right? You need to come to the one before it, that is the one below it rather. So 15, you click the 15 row, because this is, we logged a row up and not the column. So we logged the row up. So this is, you come to 15, you go to view, then there's this panel called the freeze panel. So you click on it and you just simply click on freeze panel. And that's all. So now if we scroll, you can see you're going conveniently. So that's all you do. And if you want to freeze that same location again, you just need to come back to 15. So the one below the one you want to freeze, and then you go back there again and tell it to freeze the panel. So why there's this one is because usually there might be a situation whereby it's just the top row you want to do. So you use the top row or the first column, that is the first one. But then if it's a situation whereby it's in between, what do you do? So that's why you have this flexible, more dynamic one where you tell it the location. You can do it for column, you can do it for row. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, very well. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I believe we should be back from our break right now, because we are more than 22 minutes past the hour. Yeah, so permit me to take water. Yeah, so this will be for the correction. And as I said, for today's class, we'll be using the same file. So I'll just make a copy of this. Still on the same document, create a copy, take it to the end of this, and then we're going to be having a tool. So yeah, we have this tool now. I, of course, do not need the answers from the previous one. So all I'm going to do is, okay, I'm very skeptical about the result from here. So let's, because the data are still going to represent. So if I delete this data, it should affect. Exactly. So it's going to affect, because then it refers to this value for reference sake, but now I do not need the top part of it as well. That is, I do not need all these. So I can delete them all. I do not need the first one. I can delete it as well. Okay, so we have a table. I do not need these values. So delete. So what we want to do today now, or right now, is perhaps I just unfreeze this section. Yes, I'll unfreeze this section. So we simply have some tables all the way down. And perhaps due to the latest version of Excel as well. So you don't necessarily have to freeze. You can see we are seeing the name. So we can see the names above, and that might be sufficient for you. But if not, you might need to rely on the face panel. So in this case, we do not. I do not even need the first one to be empty. So we've been able to create a data out of the previous one we had. And this is perhaps just bold it. I don't need it for anything. So the next thing is, let me unfilter as well. So I've removed the filter section. So this is a table we have. This is on its own is a table. It contains what? It contains data, just like we did before. We have the order dates, the region, the cities, the categories, the product, the quantity, as well as what? The total price. So one of the ways in which some of us did the assignment, or some of your colleagues did the assignment, was using the pivot table, which will be the next topic. So to do a pivot table, you need 3 conditions, or with 3 conditions, you're going to avoid error. So the first thing is your table must have header, which is like the first row here. You must have header for your variables because it's going to determine or create the table for you based on these headers. So it's important for you to have headers. It doesn't need to be bolded or anything, but it's just important that you have headers. It's also important that there are no spaces in between the columns or rows. So I can't have a table whereby I'm doing something like this, that there is a whole row empty space between, because if I do that, it will affect the result. So just undo this. So whether it is row or column, you shouldn't have empty space. And then with that in mind, don't add totals as well to the end or to the side. Because if you add totals, it's also going to include them as like calculation. I'm not talking about total price in this, but when you're having some totals of values that you don't need, like the total of the total price, I should have it below the dex here, is going to affect it. So when you want to use the pivot table, provided all these conditions are fulfilled, then you are good to go. So a way to do it is you come to the insert, and then you click on the pivot table, which in our case, it references this whole stuff. So the moment we click on the pivot table, which as we can see, why is it this thing? Because it understood the fact that, yeah, so this is our data range, and we have a table already, and this is the data on the table. So we have it from there all the way down. It's containing everything. Then one good thing to do is that it's better to keep this stuff like dynamic so that you don't experience issues every now and then. So in case a situation whereby you don't have a table already, what we can do is we can simply just go to this place and click on this function of create a table. And with that, it's going to create a table on its own. So if we didn't have a table, let's say I copy this as just plain values, I create another sheet, and now I'm pasting them simply as values, that is without the format. And if you see the result here now, it's just like simple values without the format or anything. I can make a table out of this, and I just tell it table. The moment I clicked table, you can see the region has been selected. So it started from the top where we have data, also to the end where we have data. So this way, we can include all the data we have. At the moment I include a new column below, is going to resize itself and include it in the table. And of course, it is important to mark this stuff that, yes, my table has header, so that it can consider the first set of columns, that is the first row with different values in its column, the first row, it can consider them the header and then everything below as values. So we can do this. It can create things like this for you, but then in our situation, we know this is not what we want. We don't want this format. So you can always change your table style. The moment you do this, it should take you to this menu. And if not, you can always click on it. So you have the table design. And we can just return it back to the plain stuff we had initially. So plain. And that we can do. So you're still going to see this as a table. And we can always remove our filter function. So remove the filter. But after removing the filter, with this, that is with this we have now, we didn't name our table. That was one thing we didn't do. Okay, so this is the name where you can name your table. We created this table and we didn't name it, so we can name it and call it something like table, this thing. Oh, no, let me close. So we can call it table underscore food sales. So we call this table underscore food sales. A simple way to do it, you can just simply press this summarize with pivot table and you immediately enter the pivot table dimension, which in this case you can see is calling it, is referring to that table that, yes, are you using table food sales, which as we can see here is also excluding the header because we already told it had headers and is going all the way to the last cell that we have values. So you can take this to a new table, a new sheet, which will be a new worksheet, just like we created this worksheet, or you can still make it the existing worksheet. All you just need is to tell it the location you want to start from. So if we don't want to affect our raw data, if you consider this to be our raw data, that is a file we can still do for something else, you can just tell it, create it here. And that's all. And so with that, we can start doing every other thing we'll do with the pivot table. But this will be for this. Let's go back to our own example. So with why I explained that is there are situations whereby the values you have is not recognized as a table yet, and then you have to make it a table yourself. But in our situation, it's already recognized as a table. And that's why when we came here, there was no distinct possibility for us to make it a table again, because the value is already recognized as a table itself. So what we need to do now is we can just go to pivot table instead of our recommended pivot table. Recommended pivot table is good because when we open it, it can show us some of the stuff that we need. So a simple example of it is this. It's telling you the total price, which is the total sales by city alone. So we can scroll through it. This one is total quantity by city, total price per category and region. So this is total price per the category. That is, there are several products within certain categories. So as we can see here, we're having bar, what's the total sales. For each region, we can see west as well as east. So in some cases, you might not need to go through the process. It might already just recommend what you need for you. Whereas in some cases, it's not perfect, as it's not perfect as a system. You might have to go through the stress of creating your own table yourself without getting the value. So these are some of it. So, this is what sum of quantity and sum of total price, which is pretty much what we need. But this is based on category and not just product only, which was not what we did in our assignment. So this is total price per product and region, which is one of the stuff we did, but then it's still including the categories. So these are just one of the stuff you can do, whereby you just simply pick that, yes, this is your preferred solution, and then you click OK, and then it creates it. So we didn't need to create it ourselves again. It just simply created it because it felt that, yeah, we already selected that that was our region. And based on that, it created this value on this sheet. So I'll go back here and then not go with that function. In case we don't have what we want, we can then just click on the pivot table itself. So we click on pivot table, and then our table here, it has a name, and that's why we are seeing name here. So sales what data 3, it has a name already. And as this one we saw before, it's highlighting the data cell outside the header because it recognizes it as a table, and it recognizes that our table has what? It has headers. So same thing all the way down. Do we want to take it to new sheet? If not, we can simply just press existing worksheet. Where? Just put it somewhere here. Somewhere here. And then we click OK. So the moment we click OK, it creates this table. So this is the framework in which you use to design your table. With these values, you can then design your table and then whatever you want to do with your table. So as you can see, the field that it gives us here, which means you should choose field you use to design your table, are our headers. As we can recall, we have this, so the order dates, the region, the city, the category, product, quantity, and what? Total price. So these are our headers, and that's why it's important to have an header. If you don't have an header, what field are you going to be choosing or creating your table based on? So that's why it's very important to have the header. So you have a filter section, you have the row, you have the column, you have the value. The value is what will be contained within the table. What do you want to be on the row? What do you want to be on the column? So for our assignment again, the second question was saying what? The total quantity, what? Hello. Why am I not able to? Because I'm not the host, I'm unable to mute. The host should help us mute the person talking, please. Okay, so back to our discussion. You need these headers to create your table. And for like our second question, we said calculate what? The total product sold per product per region. That is 2 values, which means that what do we want to be on the row? Just like we just saw now, we want the product to be on the row, right? So all you need to do is you just need to click on this product and drag it to the row section. So you drag it to the row section. The moment we did that, you can see rows were created with what? With product. What do we want on the column? The second question was what? Per region, which means we are taking region where, in this case, we're not taking region to the column. So it can appear in the wrong section. All you just need is to drag it to the right section where you want it. So by doing this now, we can see we already have a table that is showing east, west, grand total. So we have east, west, which is what we want. What do we want in between? The second one is saying what? The total quantity. So now we need to bring quantity into play. So we drag quantity into values. Why values? Because that's what we want to be showing the relationship between both the rows and the column. So the values of what is applying to the row and the column. And this is the result. So in this case, it is showing us the sum of the quantity, which is the right thing we want. There are times whereby we might not want the sum, we might want something else, maybe the average quantity. So to do that, you can always change the value that you want. All you need to do is press this drop-down arrow that is showing there, and then you're going to see this stuff that says value field setting. You click on that, and then you can always say whether it's sum you want, it's count, it's average, it's the maximum value, it's the minimum value, it's the multiplication, that is product, or you just want to count the numbers, the standard deviation and variance and the likes. So these are things you can do and not just the sum function. But for our solution, the sum function works perfectly. And if it's possible for us to, okay, let's go and then let's copy our answer and then let's paste it here. So because of reference, so let me paste values only. So values. You will notice the moment we leave the range of the table that we create, the left bar leaves. The field that we used to set, the moment we leave the region of that table, it's going to disappear. For you to bring it back, you just need to click within the table, and that comes back. And so as we can see from there, we can then compare our answers and see how it is. So you might say, this is much faster than this process, that why did I have to go through this process when I could just easily just drag without writing any formula? But then it's not about the end result. Why should you provide a report that you do not have an understanding about? And that's why we had to do this exercise ourselves. Let us know what we are adding. And then when we see the results here, we can interpret that we truly know what was added. Oh, a lot of people in the waiting room. Oh, they're able to join. Okay. Yeah, so back to it. As we can see from the comparison, we can see our result is right. But then why should you get a result that you do not understand how the result came to be? And that's why we needed to go through the process of doing the calculations ourselves first, see what was added together, and now it helps us in knowing whether it's sum we should use or it's count we should use as our function. So this is a way of using the pivot table in which we can carry out the same exercise without the need of, so just clear the content and within it, without the need to carry it out again. So to answer the other questions, we can go again and then say pivot table, but that will be requiring us to be having the answers on new sheet. So to reduce the stress of going through new sheet, all we can do is we can copy this previous table, copy the table, and then paste it down here. Even though it's the same table you copy, the only thing you are telling Excel is that you are using the same background. We can always change the values here without it affecting this. So the second question was what? Was still based on region. The second question was still based on region, but now we are not adding quantity. We wanted the total price. So all you just need to do is drag the total price here. So all you need to do was drag the total price there. After dragging the total price and clicking it, which I did now, we can see, but for total quantity, we don't need it. So to remove it, there are two ways. You can simply just drag it back into the field here, or you press the down this thing and press remove field, and it leaves there. So either one of them is fine. Don't forget, we're still using product and region. So we just drag the total price back into this, and we have the price values again. So one thing we are seeing in this table is stuff like the total, grand total, which what is doing is that it is adding both per product, it is adding also what is the total amount of each product, regardless of the region. What's the total amount of each product that we made? That is, what's the sales we made from selling each product. That's the grand total we are seeing on a column from different rows. And the grand total we are seeing here, which is within this region, has to do with what? This more or less this has to do with what is the grand total regardless of the product from each region. So this is the amount that was made from the East region, and this is the amount that was made from the West region. Yeah. Fadila, please, you can ask a question now. You can see your hands raised.
Yes, Adi, a lot of people at the waiting room. It was very hard to come in also.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know I became the host suddenly again, and I just saw people in the waiting room.
Yeah, I lost the connection and it was very hard for me to.
I'm not seeing anybody there. Yep, there were 9 of you, and I accepted for all. So if there's any issue, it's most likely perhaps because of their network.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing the notice. So we have this grand total of 18, which if our reports necessitate it, we can include it. If not, we can remove it. So a way to remove it is, so a way to remove the grand total is we can see this. The moment we start using the pivot table, you're going to see something like here, the pivot table analyzed up here, and then we are going to see the table design itself. So under the table design, we can tell it that grand total off for both rows and column. If we don't want it, we can tell it on for rows and column. We can tell it on for just the rows, which if we say on for rows, the columns disappear. So we are not saying for the total value of East. If we tell it on for column rows only, that's what we have. If we say column only, we are going to see the total value for East and West. So you can actually be very flexible with your table. At the same time, similarly, we have this design. We can go to just the plain version like we have before. We can change it to something again, like here, just this cute green design. And you can always play around with all these other small variables and like here, things like that. It's not much listen. So we can tell it to include row header, can tell it to remove it, and then the column header or this thing. So these are like designing the table where it marks it or doesn't. And if there are subtotals as well, you can do it, and you can remove all. Like just tell it, we don't want it in this table. This is enough for our answer. And we can tell it on for both again, and we have the full result just like this. So compared to our previous lesson, we are getting the same answer using another method. But like I said, my intention of taking the pivot table after the first one was just so that we can see why we are doing it and not just in a certain way where we are just accepting like, yeah, this is being done without understanding the context of what is being added together. So for the third one, you can copy it again. You can copy the table. Is there a space? Okay, let me just go down. Keep going downward. So paste. So this is B. This is for B. This is for C. And now to answer D, which is very similar to B, all we need to do again is just to change the parameters. Because for D, it's not saying region. What we need in the column is so what we need in the columns are not region, but rather now it is city that we need. So we need to bring the city into the column region and just mark it again. So wrong destination. So we can leave more than one cell in a region. That is, you can leave more than one field rather in a region. So if we want to create a table based on the region as well as the city. So what we are saying here, if we can look at this table, which is beyond our question 3 or question D, the fourth question, but just to show you, what you should note is that region is more than the city. Like the region, this region is 2, and for each region, there were 2 cities in each region, which we can refer back to our table again. We can see we have East. For East, we have Boston. For East, this is the Boston. For West, we have Los Angeles. For East, again, we can see New York. So in the east, we have Boston and New York. In the west, we have Los Angeles and San Diego. So back to our table, just so that we can see that. So this is our table. The result we are having now is not indicating the cities, which we can see down in the row column, but above the city, what we are seeing again is what? The rows, the region rather. So for each city, we can see the East region containing both New York as well as Boston, and for the West region, we can see Los Angeles as well as San Diego. And what we are seeing here again is like, the West total, the East total. And these are things that we can remove with the previous function, as I told you. We can just go to design and tell it, remove the distance. So I want only the rows, no, so this will be the columns only, and then it removes the grand total of distance. So the grand total only, no, I want to remove subtotal as well. So in this case, we have subtotal for the regions. So we have subtotal for East and subtotal for West, which we can remove, don't show subtotal, and now we have just the regions without the subtotal. And you can always include them back. That is, it's just to click within the table and tell it that, yes, show all, and it does the same thing, that is, it shows all, and we can do the same for this thing, so on for all, and we have the same thing. But to keep it back to our question only, so we just have to kick the region out. And then we have the same answer for our question D. We can remove the ground total as well, because they do not, and then we can just leave them in this case. But the answers to our question itself are within this region. So, and this is the answer for D. And yeah, we can just simply copy this again, and yeah, for our E. So it's faster, but then it's more important that we understand what we are doing than just simply doing these exercises. So we have the value, of course, now, oh, we did a mistake. So this is sum. This is sum, which is correct for E, but for D, it is total quantity. So for the total quantity, we need to change, it's coming back to D. So we've answered E above, and D was quantity, which will be kicking total price out and bringing quantity into the values. So by adding quantity to the values, we have the correct answer for our assignments in different dimensions. As I said, you can always remove these values, and then you can always include them. So this was pretty much our assignment using the pivot table. Do we have any questions regarding the use of the pivot table? Okay. I think generally we find the pivot table to be more enticing than the calculation. But like I said, it has to do more with us understanding what we are doing than just simply the pivot table itself. So I try to copy it. Aside our assignments now, we can create a new table with mixed stuff. So if we go to our table itself, just like we had per region, we had city breakdown as well. Per product, we also have categories. That is, bars is not just carrot alone, it also contains other things, just like the brand that we are seeing here. So for bars, which is the category, we have both the brand as well as the carrot. So we can create a table for this as well. That is, you can have even more complex table, which I'm going to try to do with this table here. So I'm trying to give it space. So this is the region. We have the city. We're going to bring region again into play. So I'm bringing region on top. And then for product, I can bring category as well into the setting. So category above of the product. And as we can see now, there's a plus, like a minus sign in the box, which means every distance, it's expanding the table. It's a huge time saver. Yeah, but like I said initially, it just helps you to understand what you're doing. It's a huge time saver, but it's more important that you understand what you are adding than just simply doing the table and then you do not understand what was added to what. So we can always the table is expanded. We can always collapse it by pressing this minus in a box sign. So it kind of adds everything under bar up. We can do the same and just show. So with this, we can show the table based on this in categories alone. We can do the same for region by closing the west, that is the cities, and we just have a table. So without much effort, we can have a small table that is showing the categories against what? Against the region. And we can always expand them. So one thing that could pop up as a question is that, do you want these stuff to show if you want to put this in a presentation slide? Of course, you wouldn't want that. So what you can do is, while you are within the table, go to design. So it's under the pivot table analyze. As we can see, this field list that we are seeing, it's possible we are working and we mistakenly can't find it again. That is probably because if we can see my arrow, we mistakenly clicked on this field list, we unactivated it. So even though you are in the middle of your table, you are not seeing that field list. And you can always bring it back by activating it again, that is show, and then it shows it. So for the plus sign, what we can do to remove them, if we don't want them to show in a table we would like to use, we can just press this and it removes them from the table. And we can always press this again and it includes them in the table. And then we can expand our table and do further things. You can always remove the header as well. And then you can include them. That is, remove this thing because we would not like to have what is calling itself the row label or the column label. So you can just tell it, remove it. And now even remove this. And then we have a better table. We can spool out and submit this that, this is our table. For the names, can you change them? Yes, of course, you can change them. But one thing is that you can't change them to a name that is within this place. So you can change them to something else. I can change this. I can't change this to product. I can't change it. As you can see, it's saying what pivot table file name already exists. So I can't change the header here to product, but I can change it to something more or less like product category. So what's the product category? And you see that just by entering that, that was accepted. So those are things you should know. You can edit the table, but the value you are editing the table to must not be the same name with a field here. So let's have our tables showing the expanded version again. So we can, this is expanding the table beyond just this thing. So this is our table. And now we can see the sum total of the sub, because these are subgroup. The bar is a subgroup of the total table. And as I said, we can always remove this. So we have this. We don't want to see the grand total. So let's have our table. Grand total of, we don't want the grand totals. Subtotal, no, don't show any. So we can see now we have a table that is showing more of. Under the bars, we have banana, carrot, and you can see under the crackers, we have just one. And then we have a good table. So we are almost at the hour, but I believe we all agree we started a bit late. So these are ways in which you can use the pivot table itself. And as we can see, it's very convenient to use, as was mentioned by Benedict, if I record it correctly. So it's very convenient to use. We can easily analyze our data, check if there's any form of relationship between our values, as we just saw. So you can do this, you can do that for category, you can do that for this thing, like different stuff. So the value, product category, and what it's showing is just showing here the sum of the product, which we can always change and do all these other things. So why is it showing product category? Because that's what we've renamed our sum to, and that's why it's showing product category here. If you would like to avoid that, you can just always just change and adjust things like that. So, and then we have our sum of price back again together. So we know it's the sum of the price, and this is an extended part of it. So one other thing that we can do without so we can do this expansion and collapsing without necessarily including them. So this region, we can remove region from the column and put it in filter. So just to show us how to use the filter section. The moment I removed it from it, you can see it creates a section up here. So this is more or less the filter section. That is, now I'm telling the table show all region, and now it is not showing east, nor is it showing west. It is showing all the regions. I can tell it that show me only west. So all I need to do is open this, as we can see, region all. So these are the values. Don't show me all, show me just east. And then we can see, since the other two cities are for west, they were removed from our table. I can tell it, don't show me east, show me west. And then it changes again. So you can do this for region, you can do this for this thing as well, for the product category as well. You don't necessarily have to this thing, and we can just simply tell it, show me all again. So your table is very flexible and very dynamic, that you can do a lot of things within your table. So if you would like to take it further, so even if we don't want to put it in filter, so I'm removing the region from filter. What we can do is, while we are on region, which is this, we right click and we press add as a splitter. So see, this is the row. You right click on whichever field. It might not be region, but in our case, we like to use region. So right click on filter, on splitter rather. So the moment we write splitter, we have a side button here. This is our field. I like to keep the format as, since it is monetary value, put them in dollars. So let it affect all. Let it be in what? In dollars, because this is total sales and this is accounting. So the function of what we just did with the function, with the filter now, is the same thing with the splitter. So in this case, I just need to go back to this table and then do this. So as we can see, we still have the previous table that we had, and we still have what? Cities under column, which include other cities as well. But just like the one that we did up there, we're using the filter up and down. This one is more or less clicking without going to press all and then down. So this is only east now. The white one is the one not included. If I press this, this is west. To include both of them, I just need to click on it and then make sure they are both activated. So yep, so it's just to press Control and activate both of them. So you just double click and make sure both are active. This as well, the splitter itself, you can redesign it as well. So the moment you create a slicer, rather, it creates this header called the slicer above, and then you can change the design, whichever design you want. You can change the design. And then you can change it. If you don't want it in terms of everything in one column, you can make it two columns now, and now they are beside each other, and simply reduce it to the top. So you just simply press it. Paste, paste. Yep. So if you would like to activate them, just press Control and click on the one that is not activated at the moment. This is east, this is west, and then Control and click on the one that is not activated, and they are both activated. So these are what you can do with the pivot table for the level of our class. So There are other functions you can do as well. Then I would like to take it a step further, which is a plot, to show us what we can do for plots, but we'll continue tomorrow further on that. But for plots, so we can use our entire table, which is like here, everything from here. So entire table, and we can create a plot. So this is the entire table itself. To create a plot, all we need to go is go to Insert, and then we have recommended charts. There are other charts as well, and as you can see in this case, it's already showing us the pivot chart, which we can use in our case. But just to keep it for today, we just go to recommended. So when you click on recommended, just like the way it did for the recommended pivot table, it shows you the possible stuff you can use to depict your your results. So do you want it like this, whereby it's showing you the total sales? As in this case, the total sales is the y-axis, while the products themselves are on the x-axis. And because we have the categories as well, you can see it's drawing lines that, let me just bring it up and say, okay, for this one. But this is not the only one. This is just a recommendation in which we can go from one to the other one. Do we want to stack them over each other? Do we want it to be like here, a segment of 100%, a stack based on percentage? Or do we want it in 3D, which here for some reports, it might not be the best? Do we want it in 3D as well? This is just stack. Then sometimes it could be line. Do we want it as a line to show it, depending on what we want? So do we want it as pie chart? It's not the best for our result. Why? Because as we can see it, we are seeing, although it's bringing out the writing, because for each of the category, it's writing the category name, as we can see here, as well as the product. But right now, we are not getting the best evaluation with the pie chart, or I'll say, I'm generally not a good admirer of the pie chart because it doesn't depict the result very well. So we can go for bar, which it's much better. So we are switching the position now, which is similar to the column, but then the x-axis is now the y-axis. So we can go for bar, we can go for it being stacked, something like the previous one, percentage. So let's go for the simple bar, and we have our results here. So we can drag this as well off it, and now we can see. And as you can see as well, this one is also flexible. So you can remove one from the table, you can include it and things like that. So this is our table, which we have for each product, we have their category. So we have the crackers, the snacks, the cookies and the bars, and we can see each of them in the category. And as we can see from this table, let me make it much bigger, trying to not cover our table. Yeah, so as we can see from this plot, we are seeing what was the percent distance made, and for the result, as we can see here, we only have it in Boston, that's where it's selling. For the other locations, it's empty because it's not being sold there, either because the company is not supplying it there or because those individuals living there do not fancy the product, and hence the company just feels there's no point in providing it in that location again. So these are ways in which we can create a table, and from the table, we can have our plot. The x-axis is a bit like matched up in this situation because they are very close to each other, but the further we extend our table, the more we can see the space in between them, and then we can see more practical amount of it. So the highest sales we made was from oatmeal, which was between 3,000 and 5,000. So from this is probably around 3,300 and something, which we can of course confirm from our table. So these are ways in which you use plots from your table, which is oatmeal, as you can see here, 3,262. So these are ways in which you can use plots alongside the table. So we did assignment correction. We did the pivot table, which we can see how fast is this. We can even use the slicer which also affects our plot because our plot is based on whichever table. And we can change it as well to the other side and see, and then we can see the chart as well. So we'll continue from here tomorrow. If there are any questions, just feel free to ask them now. If not, we can call it a day or give a minute for the organizers to pass some comments. Yeah, so Ifoma, you can ask a question now.
Okay, I wanted to ask, does creating, do the functions, their workability, is it affected by whether you created a table or not as well? Ordinary functions, not pivot table. Because what I'm asking is because to do this first assignment, I tried to work on a sample that I created myself, but the sum if function was not working. It's when I put it to work in this assignment part, it worked. But on that sample, it didn't work. And I just did something quick. I didn't create a table or something like that. So I was wondering why the sum if function didn't work there. But it's working on this Excel file we were given.
Okay, so the first question you asked was generalized like function, which then it will not be true for all functions. Because if you are using functions like the first set of ones that we did, whether it was the text split, or we didn't use the text split, but we did the lower, the upper, the proper, the trim, and the likes, they are not being affected by that. But for a sum if function, don't forget you want to indicate a criteria range as well as the criteria. The criteria has to be the header. So before it can become an header, Excel must recognize it as a table, regardless of whatever design you have around it. So in the initial case, like this on its own is more or less like, yeah, a simple table. You don't need to design it or anything. But Excel still recognizes this as a whole to be a table.
Okay.
So you must make it recognize that it's a table that has headers, and that's when you can use the condition. Because the headers, as we saw in the pivot table as well, play a role in creating the criteria, like the conditions that this is what you should look at, this is what you should look at. Because then Excel is saying, why should I use a variable that is part of the criteria to decide the variable? Okay. So that's more or less the logic that is behind it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, no further questions. Yeah, it's interesting to do and more flexible, but like I said, it's better to understand the more, the basics behind the report or the plot you are having than just you having these nice graphics, and then it could be a nice graphics, but it's the wrong report to what you are asked to do. So that'll be all for today's class from my hand. If the organizers have comments, be free to do so now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brahman Gaza. You are highly appreciated, really appreciate your efforts, really appreciate your the way you teach. Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate our participants. Thank you. So stay tuned till tomorrow. By God's grace. Thank you. Bye-bye. You can leave.
Yeah, my pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye.